In this assessment, we are going to be discussing the McGill's torso test. Unlike many muscular endurance assessments where our goal is to obtain a score to put us in either a good or a fair category, our goal here is to assess the endurance of the front, back, and sides of the body to see if there's any muscular imbalances that could put you at risk for back pain. First and foremost, it's imperative that you always walk your client through the process of the assessment beforehand and make them aware of the objective or purpose of the assessment so they know what they're doing and why. If your client suffers from chronic low back pain, has had recent back surgery, or is in the middle of a low back flare-up, it may not be appropriate to administer this assessment. If they experience pain during any portion of the assessment, stop. The first component of this assessment is the trunk flexor endurance test, which assesses the anterior muscles of the core that stabilize the spine. Proper alignment of this assessment position requires the client to be seated with the hips and knees bent to 90 degrees, aligning the hips, knees, and second toe. Instruct the client to fold his or her arms across the chest, touching each hand to the opposite shoulder, leaning against the board position at a 60-degree incline. Keep the head in a neutral position. Instruct the client to engage the abdominals to maintain a flat to neutral spine. The back should never be allowed to arch during the test. The trainer can anchor the toes under a strap or manually stabilize the feet if necessary. It is important to ask the client to press the shoulders into the board and maintain this open position throughout the test after the board is removed. The goal of the client is to hold this 60-degree position for as long as possible without the benefit of the back support. Allow the client to practice this position before testing. Once the client is ready to begin, the trainer starts the stopwatch as he or she moves the board about 4 inches back, while the client maintains the 60-degree suspended position. Terminate the test and record the time when there is a noticeable deviation from a neutral spine, such as shoulders rounding forward or excessive arch in the low back. No part of the back should touch the backrest. The next portion of this is the lateral endurance test, also known as the side bridge test, which assesses the muscular endurance of the lateral core muscles. Similar to the trunk flexor endurance test, this time test involves static isometric contractions of the lateral muscles of the core. In addition to the previously mentioned contraindications, this assessment may not be appropriate for clients with shoulder pain or weakness. After explaining the purpose of this test, describe the proper body position. The starting position requires the client to be on his or her side with legs extended, aligning the feet on top of each other or in a tandem heel-to-toe stance. Have the client place the lower arm under the body and the upper arm on the side of the body. When the client is ready, instruct him or her to assume the full side bridge position, keeping both legs extended and the sides of the feet on the floor. The elbow of the lower arm should be positioned directly under the shoulder with the forearm facing out. The forearm can be placed palm down for balance and support. And the upper arm should be rested along the side of the body or across the chest to the opposite shoulder. The hips should be elevated off the mat and the body should be in a straight line. The torso should only be supported by the client's foot or feet and the elbow and forearm of the lower arm. The goal of the test is to hold this position for as long as possible. Encourage the client to practice this position prior to attempting the test. When the client is ready to begin, the trainer starts the stopwatch as the client moves into the side bridge position. Terminate the test and record the client's time when there is a noticeable change in the trunk position or a deviation from the neutral spine, such as hips dropping downward, forward, or backward to maintain stability and balance. The final portion of the assessment is the trunk extensor endurance test, which assesses the endurance of the back extensors. In addition to the contraindications that were previously mentioned, this test might not be suitable if a client with major strength deficiencies where the individual cannot lift the torso from a forward flex position into a neutral position, a client with a high body mass in which it would be difficult for the trainer to support the client's suspended upper body weight. After explaining the purpose of the test, explain the proper body position. The starting position requires the client to be prone, positioning the iliac crest at the table edge while supporting the upper extremity on the arms, which are placed on the floor or on a riser. While the client is supporting the weight of his or her upper body, anchor the client's lower legs to the table using a strap. If a strap is not used, the trainer will have to use his or her own body weight to stabilize the client's legs. The goal of the test is to hold a horizontal prone position for as long as possible. Encourage the client to practice this position prior to attempting the test. When ready, the client lifts the torso until it's parallel to the floor with his or her arms crossed over the chest. Start the stopwatch as soon as the client assumes this position. Terminate the test when the client can no longer maintain the position. Record the client's time on the testing form. Now we're going to walk through an example to see how we can actually use this information with our clients. In this example, we will say that they have a trunk flexion score of 75 seconds, a right side bridge score of 48 seconds, a left side bridge of 50 seconds, a trunk extensor endurance of 70 seconds. To calculate the ratios that we're looking for, we will first divide flexion by extension. So 75 divided by 70, which gives us a value of about 1.07. The next one we will calculate is the right side by the left side, which is 48 divided by 50, which gives us a value of 0.96. The last portion has two parts, so we will do both sides divided by the extensor value. So for the right side to the extensor value, we have 48 divided by 70, which gives us about 0.69. And for the left side to extensor value, we have 50 divided by 70, which gives us a value of about 0.71. So what does this all mean? The desired value for flexion to extension is less than 1, so this client's score is slightly high. The desired value for the right side to left side ratio is plus or minus 0.05 of 1. So this client's right to left side score is within the 0.95 to 1.05 range. That means that one side is slightly stronger, but not so much stronger that it could potentially lead to back pain. Finally, the desired value for the side to extensor ratio is less than 0.75, and both the left side to extensor and the right side to extensor values are below that. So as a trainer, all of these client scores met the recommendations except for flexion to extension, which is slightly above the recommended 1.0 score. As a fitness professional, this means you should work to promote endurance of the trunk extensors to reduce back pain during your sessions.